In the turbulent 1940s, George Drew controlled the helm. For the transitional and developmental atmosphere of the 1950s, Leslie Frost delivered the kind of style and stewardship Ontario needed to be ready for the challenges of the coming decade. A decade of rapid growth governed by John Robarts, and then the changing times of the 70s and 80s, led by
the new Premier of Ontario, Bill Davis.
Ladies and gentlemen, my remarks will be very short because I've achieved my objective. I'm a has-been. I love you all. Billy, the best in the world to you. And you've got a great group to go with you.
The two things Bill Davis is most anxious about is the world his grandchildren are going to live in and leaving Canada a strong Canada. Now, that's not for today or tomorrow or next week. That's for the end of the century and into the next century. It takes a lot of guts to be that way in politics because in most cases we vote with our emotions, and emotions relate to the issues that affect our livelihood and our well-being today.
Well, as far as Bill Davis's commitment to education is concerned, it's obvious to me that anyone who will talk about the Davis years, who will write about Bill Davis the man and his role in the government of the province of Ontario would have to place very high this whole question of his involvement in the educational system of Ontario. He, after all, brought the community college system to Ontario, did many positive things about the other aspects of post-secondary education, the university community, and not to overlook changes and development in the elementary and secondary schools as well.
I have heard practically every political leader in the country from all parties profess their great interest in young people in various political parties and in their participation in the political process. And my personal experience leads me to believe that none of them have been or ever will be more sincere in that belief than Bill Davis. He's encouraged young people to be around him in the party. And I think, in a sense, it may tie back, in fact, to his own very fervent and deep belief in the family and in the next generation.
I guess one of the interesting things working around the Premier was that no matter how rough things got, you know, if things were kind of crashing down around his head on heaven knows how many subjects around the office, you know, we've got cabinet ministers in a revolt, and you've got a budget about to come down, and you've got the Prime Minister calling from Ottawa, and anyway, all those things were under control. I've never seen him get flustered or even suggest that he didn't have things under utter, total control. The only time when the mind would seem to wander a bit, when he would stand in his office and kind of look out his window down University Avenue, and you knew you were talking, but he was not listening. The only time that happened was when there was something of a personal nature bothering him, which would relate directly to 61 Main Street South, his family.
Working for the Premier was never really business. It was always sort of, it was fun. It was fun. It was a sort of a job where you never really thought you were going to work. It wasn't monotonous, that's without a doubt. You're always involved in the Premier making decisions of state, so to speak. When I say involved, I wasn't making the decisions, but certainly you were privy to the conversations that were going on. So it was almost like being a politician without having to run for office, and that was kind of nice, and I was getting paid for it.
I think the one thing about him is that he's gathered around him a staff that is so loyal to him, and all through the years, the ones who have remained with him, and there are many who have, are so loyal to him, but he's loyal to them in return, and you always know you can count on him, and I think that's one of the main things that I think about him.
I think that one of his greatest strengths in office has been the relationship he's been able to maintain with the senior civil service. I think that all of them have a feeling of great warmth and respect, indeed affection for him. And I can't think of a deputy minister, for example, who wouldn't go to the wall if he felt that the Premier wanted something done that was going to advance the interests of this particular government.
The best thing about having Bill Davis as a friend is that you also have Kathy Davis as a friend for yourself and for your wife. What makes Bill Davis unique as a leader is his vast knowledge of Ontario and his deep understanding of the people of Ontario.
He came into politics with all his old-fashioned values, and they've stood him in good stead, because here you've got a man who's been in politics for over 25 years, and he's no more a cynic today than he was the first day he came in here.
I think he will be remembered as one of a series of premiers of the province of Ontario that have helped to build the province of Ontario into the very comfortable and very prosperous and good place to live in. Probably one of the best in North America, and he has made his contribution to that by retaining the cultural and fiscal integrity of this province.
I think, of course, his most significant accomplishment is the fact that he was able to be a leader and premier for a period of almost 14 years. He brought good government to the people of Ontario. And he did it being a person who was sensitive to national issues, because the one thing about Billy Davis is he's a Canadian.
I think winning the 1983 Grey Cup game might have been instrumental in Bill's retiring. He says that the reason the turnabout came, in the first half we weren't doing much, but then when he took over and started sending the plays in the second half, that's when we came back to life.
Well, a lot of people don't realize it, that the stadium that we have at the present time, which houses the Blue Jays and the Argonauts, was decided upon in front of 33,000 people waiting for a Grey Cup game to start. We were waiting for the Governor General to arrive, and Bill and Davis and I struck a deal on the 55-yard line, talking about a new baseball-football facility while waiting for a football game to take place. No one in the crowd really knew that was taking place. Bill Davis's contribution to Metro has been a most significant one, especially in the area of transportation. He was named the Transit Man of the Year. He did that for a very specific reason. It's because of the fact is that the public funding that came from the province of Ontario in the whole area of public transit was probably more significant than any other jurisdiction on the North American continent. He made public transportation a real going concern during the 1970s. We really needed that in Metropolitan Toronto to help the municipality of Metropolitan Toronto build those massive extensions onto the subway system. Without Bill Davis's intervention, without the provincial money that he was prepared to put forward, it would not have taken place. A lot of people ride to work in comfort today because Bill Davis decided that Metropolitan Toronto needed a public transportation system that was second to none in the entire world.
Certainly from Labour's point of view, there's been some progressive legislation that has passed through the House. If I could just allude to some of those, the whole question of occupational health and safety legislation, the checkoff of union dues, expedited arbitration, a number of those things have been productive in our view. We have jointly affected legislation that has been in the interest of working people in the province of Ontario.
What do I remember most about Bill Davis? His support for the things that he believed in and which I believed in and which he allowed me to carry out. Restraint, I suppose, was the best example of the 70s. We'd gone through booming times. Spending was the name of the game. All of a sudden we realized that we had to slow things down. His support for that made restraint in Ontario possible. I think it's made restraint a popular word in Canada generally.
He was a better listener than he was a talker, which is remarkable in a politician. But he did listen, and he had an inexhaustible patience, and so that he truly did lead people rather than drive.
In connection with the patriation of the Constitution, I think that probably clearly Davis made a very substantial contribution to it, but I think it was largely because of the chemistry between Trudeau and Davis. Bill Davis is a fantastic consensus person. Even though those two men had far different views about politics and the nature of the country, they liked one another. And I think that the reason Trudeau at the last minute made a very major concession, one that he was very firmly opposed to, was as much as anything because he liked and respected Bill Davis.
I think the central thing about Bill Davis and the Constitution was that he put the country first. The easy route would have been the route that some of the other 8 premiers who were in opposition took, which was being opposed to a Liberal government in Ottawa simply because they were Liberal, staying with the party line, if you wish. He put the country first, I think, because as a premier, he's always been a Canadian first.
When you know what his thoughts are and the kinds of directions that his thoughts take on a regular basis, then you know that he does have usually a fairly strongly held conviction. And when he has a conviction that is strongly held, well, you might just as well accept it. I really admire William's phenomenal capacity for circumlocution.
I think he honestly believed that one of the detriments to effective political expression from the point of view of leadership was punctuation. I think punctuation per se, in his view, was one of those things that broke up a lucid, liquid, flowing, all-embracing thought. I think he believed that a political speech was like a tent. The broader the dimensions, the more people involved, and therefore punctuation was the ultimate enemy for Bill Davis and his political speaking style, and therefore for him to say to a crowd, as he did on so many occasions, that I think from time to time there are some in this room who believe, and at least I know many of them have as much reason to believe this as I do, and I know many of them by name, if not in person. Both Kathleen and myself have felt, at least we feel from time to time, we know those who from across this great province, and certainly in the community of Brampton, share a certain consensus and common resolve around a concern which I have had the courage to express as Premier. That kind of sentence was the kind of thing that I think made him feel good, and made his audience feel wanted, because they had to work so hard at understanding what he was saying.
I was routed so early in my career by Bill Davis that it takes me a while to regain perspective after those early days of '71. People ask me what I will remember about Bill Davis, and there are 2 things I'll remember, and I value them intensely, both in retrospect and at the time. First is that he's an immensely decent human being, and I have learned through political life that that's not always the case. And the second is that he's a very intelligent human being, and that quality is sometimes lacking in the political arena. So his real contribution, in an odd way, is almost an abstract one. It's the way in which he embodied the feelings of the province in what he said and did, and how comfortable, on balance, Ontarians were with his leadership.
Bill Davis is a natural leader. I think that it is true that he played on teams when he went to university and so on, but when Bill Davis is in a room or when he's at a gathering of any kind, I wouldn't say that he's the center of attention, but he is a focus of attention. And when he wishes to take charge, believe me, he can take charge.
Bill Davis has been an outstanding leader with a remarkable, perhaps unparalleled record of accomplishment during a most distinguished career. While vigorous in his defense of Ontario's interests, he has unfailingly placed those interests in a national perspective. His moderate and thoughtful approach to complex issues over many years contributed to his reputation as a genuinely great Canadian. His departure from the highest councils of Canada constitutes a serious loss for this nation. It's a measure of his selfless approach to public life and to his party that he steps aside at a time when his personal popularity and that of his government are at record highs. His belief in the importance of ensuring a timely and orderly succession for the government and the people of Ontario illustrates again, I think, the sincerity of his commitment to the basic tenets of our democratic life. Bill Davis has led Ontario to new degrees of accomplishment in all areas of endeavor and to a new prosperity across this province. He has done so with vision, generosity, and goodwill. He has served Ontario and Canada in the finest and most honorable traditions of our national political life. Bill has been for Mila and me a wise counselor and a warm-hearted friend. We are truly grateful to him and Kathy for their sterling contributions to Canada and to Ontario.
14 years ago, Bill was not the consummate sort of Mr. Ontario image that he now is, and that really isn't an image. I mean, he is so skillful and at ease with his work now. But in the beginning, there were many, many difficult times, and not just difficult times, difficult years. So I think I hope people will remember that there is, in that kind of work, there is such room for personal growth, both intellectual and spiritual, I think. I think Bill is a wonderful example of that.
We had a dream to use our strength within and rise as one with leadership we could count on to make this province strong. The Davis years now join the heritage that makes us strong, and in our hearts he will remain as one we could count on. Yes, it's leadership that makes us strong. Leadership you can count on. Leadership to show the way. We'll keep this province growing strong. Leadership that makes us strong. Leadership you can count on. Leadership to show the way. We'll keep this province growing strong. Leadership that makes us strong. Leadership you can count on. Leadership to show the way. We'll keep this province growing strong.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bill and Kathy Davis.
Leadership you can count on. Leadership to show the way.